They're claiming that we made a deal with them. We never made a deal with them on neutrality until we talked to our membership. Our membership with AOT, ASME, CWA, and Teamsters was overwhelmingly no. We don't want a neutral stance. So we listened to you. The reason why this is circled and the reason why we are here right now is because all of you stood in solidarity and we're together. They have never seen a presence like this before. This has not been an easy fight. If they had the votes on number one, they would have ran it by now. They don't. And if they run it today, we will let them know, not acceptable. We still have chances that we can do this. Still call your senators. Text into them right now. You let them know that you are out here waiting. You want them to vote no on number one. And if you don't feel good about those substitutes, you tell them you don't even like those. This is you. We're a democracy. We listen to our people. We don't give in to pressure.
Hundreds of Utahns are inside the Capitol Rotunda to make their voices heard, asking Governor Cox to veto the bill that would stop unions from coming to the bargaining table for their employees. Utahns like firefighters, labor workers, educators, and their families are here. Teachers like Cache County School District Teacher of the Year, Laura Haney.
Because we don't have time in our day. Our job is focusing on the students. And unions help represent us to make sure that we get our points, we get things we needed in our classroom. Our voices matter, and we don't have the time to come to legislative meetings and to fight for those things. But our focus is on the classroom, and in a union, they represent us and are our voice.
So this affects all of us. This is a lot bigger than teachers, and in fact, it's a lot bigger than collective bargaining. So much of the focus has been based on collective bargaining, but my department, Unified Fire Authority, does not have collective bargaining. But this bill completely removes our ability to collaborate and continue to cooperate with the elected officials in our administration.
I definitely feel like this is a big, punch in the gut to educators, police officers, firefighters. We were under the impression that we could kind of watch this and kind of see where it goes, and then it was kind of ripped from under us and pushed through. So we're hoping that Governor Cox does his part and vetoes it.
As public servants, we realize that we can make more money elsewhere. Teachers, police, and fire, we do it because our heart is in it. And, we're not in it for the money. We're in it because we like to serve. We have a heart to serve. And we need to be supported and not betrayed.
I said after the election that we were going to see more and more of these cases. I didn't know it would happen this soon. But there's an element of people who voted for Donald Trump or supported Donald Trump or whose organization was in a position to endorse either candidate and then didn't. And now they're finding out. It is the f around and find out. That's what's happening right now. And firefighters and different public service job, people in that sector are really finding out. I don't know what it is about firefighters. I certainly know what it is about cops who want to support somebody like Donald Trump because he wants to give them total immunity for gunning down innocent, unarmed citizens. But firefighters, that's real public service. That they're not granted power to harm citizens. They don't carry weapons. They don't feel like they're authority figures to run roughshod over constitutional rights. They are first responders. They oftentimes show themselves to be heroes. Rarely, that's the case with cops, in my view. But firefighters are different. So it bothers me and it makes me quizzical, to say the least, as to why they would withhold their endorsement as a union, as a group, as a collective from Kamala Harris, refusing to endorse this election. They endorsed Joe Biden in 2020, but why not Kamala Harris? Curious. You would think they would be smart enough, intellectual enough to noodle through what the outcome would be of supporting Donald Trump and a party that doesn't want to fund anything other than tax cuts for the super wealthy. Here's a headline from October 3rd from the New York Times. Firefighters Union declines to endorse a presidential candidate. The International Association of Firefighters was one of the first unions to endorse Joe Biden in 2020. In 2024, its board voted not to endorse at all. They took the tack of the Washington Post and the LA Times, We're just not going to make an endorsement, which is a tacit endorsement, is what it is. Smash cut to December 21st, New York Post, fire unions livid as funding for 9/11 health fund excluded from federal budget, funds in jeopardy.
The Utah state legislature just passed a bill getting rid of public unions. There is a lot to unpack here, but it just passed in the House, so it hasn't passed in the Senate. It hasn't been signed into law. But also, what you should know is Utah is like a political test tube for conservatives because it's so conservative, like pretty much supermajority are conservative representatives, that the Republicans take the most far right things and laws they can do and try and get them passed in states like Utah where they can get passed, just to see how it goes and how it can gain traction. And so this one is really interesting. But also what you should know is in Utah, because it's more conservative, you can still have unions, but they aren't as strong as they are in some other states. And there can be a lot of problems here in Utah. There's not a lot of good training in unions, and there's a lot of issues with personal representatives in unions and getting the representation that you need. And I've sued quite a few unions here in Utah with the lack of representation and leaving my clients high and dry. But so they're trying to abolish it completely. And there's, including teacher unions, and there's a lot of teachers, because the union is so bad, that they just opt out of the union and they get insurance. And because of that, then they don't have to deal with a union representative. They just have insurance and they can get an attorney like me to represent them, which can be a lot better, especially with how crazy it is. Understanding public employment law and your rights, your constitutional rights as a public employee. So that's one thing that the bill does, is it still requires them to get professional liability insurance. So as a practical matter, I can see how it can be more beneficial, because having an attorney could be way better than what a lot of people are dealing with the current union as is. But also it's a First Amendment issue, because you're essentially abolishing their right to assemble, free speech, bargaining rights. So there's issues to unpack there as well. I don't think the law as it stands will be able to pass, but I think that also something has to be done with the unions. Again, I've been suing them all the time. It needs to be fixed. I don't know if abolishing them is the way to go, but there needs to be, they need to beef it up. They need better training with their unions. Representatives need to understand so many people get terminated or have issues where they don't have representation present. So there's a lot of Weingartner rights that get stepped on. So yeah, Utah's fun.
Let the union busting games begin. This bill prohibits public employers from recognizing labor organizations for negotiating. This prohibits people from entering collective bargaining contracts. Basically, Utah's House of Representatives just shit all over their teachers, their firefighters, their police officers, their EMTs, probably like CPS workers, and all sorts of employees. Unfortunately, this is only the beginning. It'll soon be private sector, and it'll be many, many more states. It's all part of P2025, just like we said. Not to mention that 45 and Muscanazi here, they hate unions. They hate them.
So the people I feel bad for are the people in the unions who did not vote for these legislators. Ohio in 2011, we had Ohio Senate Bill 5. And this basically would have stripped all public workers of their right to unionize and eliminated all the unions. they got petition. They had petitions go out. They signed them. It went for a vote in November, and that shit failed. Like it did not pass at all. Like, yeah, it was like they called that at like 8:30, 9 o'clock, and our polls close at like 7:30. But it blows my mind. And this was introduced under Republican legislature in Ohio. And I do not feel bad for union workers who are registered Republicans and vote Republicans when time and time again, the Republican Party has showed they do not give a fuck about you. So all you folks in unions in Utah that are Democrats or at least use your brain and are like, hey, these people aren't good. Let me not vote for them. Let me vote for the Democrats. I feel bad for you. Anybody else, you fucked around and now you're finding out. It's hard to feel bad for you.
I can't understand how any union member voted for Trump outside of voting for racism. Notice in that video, you don't see a black face nowhere in that crowd. Black people and minorities are being locked out of the blue-collar jobs. I believe it's going to be our downfall. A lot of people don't want to do blue-collar jobs. We need to motivate kids more to get into the trades, but the trades are full of racism, sexism, nepotism, and favoritism. We need to eliminate it in our unions. It's disgusting. It's time. You guys voted against your own money. You should have voted for your families. You voted for racism. Fuck around and find out.